When the police arrived, the shooting had stopped. Two men had been taken down in the parking structure by Taemin's own security team, called in silently while the chaos was happening. Taemin himself was in the corridor, helping a male nurse lift an elderly patient back to bed. He was not doing it for the cameras. He didn't know about the cameras yet. Alana moved through the ward systematically, checking each room, confirming each patient, cataloging what had happened. She found a young boy hidden under his bed. She sat on the floor beside him until his breathing slowed. She stayed until he slept. Past 2 in the morning, she came into the main corridor. Taemin was sitting on a bench near the nurse's station, not commanding the space, just sitting, elbows on his knees, head slightly bowed. His coat was torn at the shoulder. A scrape ran along his jaw. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. Neither spoke for a moment. "Is everyone all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Thanks to you." He looked away. "I brought this here." She sat down on the other end of the bench. "Yes," she said. "You did." She didn't soften it. He nodded slowly, accepting it. By morning, the security footage had already reached the news. The headline was everywhere by sunrise. Feared crime boss shields hospital staff during syndicate attack. The footage was grainy but clear enough. A large man covering a nurse's back while she worked. The same man helping lift a patient. The same man sitting alone on a bench at 2 in the morning, looking at the floor. Public opinion fractured loudly and immediately. Some called him a hero. Some called it performance. Columns argued. Social media split down the middle. Radio stations ran polls. The hospital board called an emergency meeting. The donation offer made earlier, they wanted to accept it now. Publicly. A ceremony. A named wing. A press event. Dr. Seo sent Alana a message asking her to attend the announcement. She didn't reply immediately. She found Taemin instead. He was outside near the car park, watching the street with the quiet focus of a man waiting for information. His phone was in his hand, but he wasn't looking at it. She stopped in front of him. "You don't get redemption because cameras were rolling," she said. The words landed, directly and fully. He didn't argue. He didn't explain or deflect. He was simply silent. Then, quietly, "What would redemption cost?" The question surprised her. Not because it was wrong, but because it was real. She had expected defensiveness. Instead, he was asking genuinely, the way someone asks when they don't already know the answer. They walked outside. The morning air was still cool from the storm. "It wouldn't cost anything," she said. "That's exactly the point. You can't buy it. You can't announce it. It isn't something anyone hands you." She paused. Redemption is just what it looks like when a person changes and keeps going. He walked beside her without speaking. "Cameras don't decide what you are," she said. "What you do when no one's watching does." Silence. Then she said something she hadn't planned to. He had asked an honest question. It seemed to deserve an honest answer. "My father was killed by organized crime," she said. "I was 9 years old. The morning traffic moved past them." Taemin stopped walking. She turned to face him. His expression was still, but his eyes were different, as if a window had opened behind them. He didn't apologize. He didn't defend the world he belonged to. He said her name. Softly. "Alana." Like he was hearing it for the first time. She went home after the morning shift and made breakfast for Eli, who was 6 and entirely unbothered by the news. He told her about a dream involving a dragon and a school bus. She listened. She made eggs. After she put him on the school van, she sat at her kitchen table with cold coffee for a long time. She had told Taemin about her father. She hadn't planned to. She was not someone who gave personal things away easily. She had offered it, and he had received it without using it. Unusual in her experience. She had grown up knowing what organized crime meant. Not abstractly. Specifically. A phone call. A closed casket. Her mother's face in the years that followed. That knowledge had shaped every choice since. Why she became a nurse. Why she worked midnights. Why she sent the envelope back. She was not naive about what Taemin was. But she was not naive about what she had witnessed in the corridor either. A man who had every reason to run and didn't. She didn't know what that meant yet. She wasn't sure it changed anything. But she held it honestly, clearly, without looking away, without deciding too fast. Across the city, something was already breaking. Inside Taemin's organization, the hospital events had not gone unnoticed. Senior lieutenants gathered without him above a restaurant in the Mapo district. They spoke carefully, the way men speak when preparing something that cannot be undone. Their concern was not the shooting. Shootings happened. The concern was the pattern. The rival's child driven personally to a hospital. A nurse inside the circle of his attention. A man photographed sitting on a hospital bench at 2 in the morning, looking at the floor. They used the word weakness several times. The youngest lieutenant, Bay, argued that perception was everything. Their organization ran on fear and certainty. One man's public softening could unravel years of carefully built authority. Two of the others agreed. The fourth, the oldest, a man who had been with Taemin for 16 years, said nothing. He just looked at the wall. They voted. 3-1. A plan was formed. Taemin's most trusted aide, Ryan, the man who had compiled Alana's file, who knew everything, had been contacted first. He had agreed to cooperate. Nobody at that table knew that Taemin had already been told. Someone inside the meeting carried an older debt. A quiet message had arrived 3 days earlier. 3 sentences. No names. Taemin read it and went back to work. He made no visible change to his routine. His entire life had been built on one understanding. If you know what is coming, the most dangerous thing you can do is let anyone see that you know. He walked into an alley behind a restaurant in Itaewon on a Thursday night with 2 men he believed he could trust. He was wrong about one of them. The shot came from behind. He was down before he fully processed the sound. A burning impact in his left side, high, below the shoulder. He hit the ground hard. He heard the second man shout. He heard running. He stayed conscious through pure discipline, one hand pressed flat against the wound, his mind cataloging the pain with the detached clarity of a man who had spent 30 years preparing for exactly this moment. He was found 14 minutes later by a man walking a dog who called the emergency line. The ambulance arrived quickly. The paramedics worked fast and spoke in urgent shorthand and loaded him into the vehicle, and the doors shut, and the city blurred past the small high window. They took him to the nearest hospital. It was the same one. Of course it was. Alana was 40 minutes into her shift when they brought him in. She knew before she saw his face, from the paramedics' urgency, from the tension preceding the gurney through the doors, from the blood pressure reading called out in the corridor, telling her the patient was serious and deteriorating fast. Then she saw him. His eyes were open, watching the ceiling above with a focused, controlled expression, as if staying present through sheer discipline alone. She stepped to the gurney. His eyes moved to her face. She kept her expression steady. This was her ward. He was her patient. Left side, below the shoulder, she said, reading the paramedic's report. Through and through. Possible fragment, the paramedic said. She nodded and began assessing, hands steady, voice steady. He reached for her arm. She stopped. Something was in his hand. A folded piece of paper. She could see the edge of a figure written on it. He was trying to give it to her. Old habits. She took it from his hand and set it on the counter without unfolding it. I'll look at it later, she said simply. She went back to work. His vitals dropped, then dropped again. The monitor screamed. The surgery lasted 2 hours and 17 minutes. Alana was not in the theater for most of it. She managed her ward, cared for other patients, did what the shift required. Her job was not to be in that room. But when the call came from the OR and she saw the change in her colleagues' faces, that particular shift, that specific silence, she understood. She went to the theater door. She wasn't allowed in. She pushed through anyway. The surgeon looked up, alarmed for 1 second. Something in her expression made him look back down. She walked to the table. She looked at the monitors, the numbers telling the story she already feared. She reached down and took his hand. Don't let this be the only good thing you've done, she said quietly. She wasn't sure he could hear her. She said it anyway. The monitor dipped, held flat for 3 seconds that felt like a full minute. Then it found a beat. Unsteady. Steadier. Real. She stood a moment longer. Then she let go, stepped back, and walked out. She sat on the bench in the corridor, the same bench where he had once sat. She put her face in her hands and breathed slowly until she was steady. He was in the hospital for 11 days. Alana was his nurse for the first 4. He was difficult, too alert, too impatient, managing his pain with the same rigid discipline he applied to everything. On the morning of the 4th day, she set down his medication and turned to leave. My father's name was Jang Sung-ho, he said. She turned. He died when I was 11. He wasn't a good man. Wasn't a bad one either. He just couldn't hold anything together. He looked at the wall. I decided at 11 I would never be someone things fell apart for. She sat down beside the bed. They talked for 40 minutes. Not about the syndicate. Not about the shooting. About fathers. About 9 years old and 11 years old. About what you decide when you are young and afraid, and what those early decisions cost you later. When she left for her break, she didn't know what he would do. 6 days after discharge, he called a press conference. He dissolved the financial arm of his criminal network in front of cameras. The funds would be redirected, an anonymous pediatric trauma network across South Korea. No branding, no photo opportunities, no named facilities. No one traced it to him publicly. He never asked for credit. Exactly 1 year later, at 12:17 in the morning, a new pediatric wing opened. The ceremony was quiet. No press. A small group of staff stood in the corridor, clean floors, fresh equipment, windows facing the city lights. The ward smelled like paint and possibility. No donor name on the wall. Just the wing's name in silver letters, the Midnight Ward. Alana stood near the window with Eli beside her. He held her hand and looked at everything with wide eyes. Hospitals had never frightened him. His mother had made sure of that. She heard him before she saw him. That particular stillness. The way a room shifted when he entered. Taemin stood at the entrance. Dark coat. Alone. He looked at the room, then at her. He didn't come closer. She nodded once. He nodded back. Then Eli tugged her hand and pointed upward. A small paper star hung above the nurse's station. She looked up. When she looked back, he was gone. In his office that night, on the wall above his desk, hung a single-framed hospital wristband. White. Printed with the date, he had been brought in bleeding. Below it, 4 words in his own handwriting. She refused my money. He never tried again. And that was exactly why she changed him.
Thank you for watching part 2. Please like, comment, and share for more powerful stories.